Welcome to this week's edition of Sideline to Sideline on Giant TV Niagara. I'm Chuck LaFleur, along with, what's your name again? It's been so long since we've done a show.
Well, I don't know. Do we go Zeus? Do we go Ryan? No, of course it's me. It's the co-host with the co-most, Ryan Fleming.
Oh, geez, good to see you. How's your summer going?
My summer's going good. It was a short summer for me. You know?
It was.
We know I went back to school and it was summer school for this old Rodney Dangerfield-esque
First thing
student.
I thought, Rodney Dangerfield back to school.
Well, that's it. You know, it's that or life of the party. So I'd rather go Rodney than Melissa McCarthy.
I don't blame you.
Right.
And another good reference there. Hey, you know what? The summer is done because it's hockey season.
Best time of the year.
It really is. You know what? I had a chance recently to go to the Pelham Meridian Community Center. Beautiful place. The GOJHL Showcase Weekend was on. Nothing like the first hockey game of the season. And, for coaches, we have a very good coach with us here today from the GOJHL. There's nothing like it, Ryan, when you get that smell of the arena and you get the first view of hockey, and it's just one of the best feelings.
And when you get that shaved ice on your face the first time, it's pretty good.
Well, this guy didn't have a lot of shaved ice on his face over the years because he played a rough and tumble game. And we were talking prior to getting going here about his minor hockey days. We'll touch on that. Please welcome to the show Mr. Chris Lukie, head coach of the Welland Junior Canadians. Chris, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Where do we want to talk obviously about the GOJHL and about the Welland team for this season in a big rebuilding mode, but we've got lots to ask Chris though about first his coaching days and also prior to that even his hockey playing days, right?
Yeah, you've been everywhere. You've done it all.
I don't know about that.
Okay,
but
you've done a lot though over your career.
Yeah.
What are some of your highlights coming up through minors and juniors and stuff that you think led to you becoming a head coach?
Oh boy, I left home at a young age. I left home when I was 16 years old. I got drafted. I was a really late draft pick in the OHL. Left home when I was really young, so I had to mature fast. But one of my biggest and first influences to become a coach was Tommy Webster of the Windsor Spitfires, and also a guy named Fred O'Donnell. He was my first coach in Kingston, and two guys who played pro hockey. And when I got to that level, I really realized that hockey was more than just throwing a bunch of guys on the ice. They had a lot of systems. They had plays. They were very organized. And it was like, wow, it was a great experience. But I really got the itch from Tommy Webster.
Good Kirkland Lake boy from up in Northern Ontario. Got to throw that plug in there for us Northerners. Tommy Webster, then great success in the National Hockey League. Fred O'Donnell, remember him with the Boston Bruins in the 70s. Chris, I want to ask you this. For any young players who are late drafted, you were was it a 12th round pick?
I was a 12th round draft pick.
There's not a lot of 12th round draft picks that make it to the Ontario Hockey League, right? So first, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What would you say to any youngsters who are watching right now who may not have been drafted or are drafted late? What got you there?
Well, for me, that was my dream and my goal. I wanted to play in the Ontario Hockey League, and I wouldn't settle for anything less. So I was the type of kid, I showed up to camp, and I probably expected after 48 hours, we're going to send this kid home. And 2, 3, 4 days later, I was still hanging around. And I actually started going to school in Kingston. Now we're going into a week or 10 days later. We thought we got to get this kid into school. And but I eventually did get sent down about a month later to the Tier 2 team in Smith Falls. So I played for the Smith Falls Bears, and they gave me an option. They said, "Listen, we didn't expect you to play. We didn't really have a spot for you, but you left an impression, and you can either go home back to St. Catharines, or we have a team for you about 45 minutes down the road, Tier 2 Junior A team in Smith Falls." And I did not want to go home. I thought if I go home, I'll be buried and I'll never play in the OHL. So I hung around, played in Smith Falls, and sure enough, through injuries, suspensions, and all that stuff, probably a week or two later, I got called up. Played a game, got called up again. I was getting called up so much, they finally said, might as well just move back here. So that's kind of how it all happened.
Now, minor hockey, Chris, you filled the net pretty much, right? And your role kind of gravitated towards a different style of play, did it not?
Yeah, and I think if you talk to a lot of players who advance and play at an OHL or a pro level, you'll hear the same story. I know Nick Kiprios tells the same story, how he was a sniper in junior hockey, and when he turned pro, his role changed. So I had to do something to make an impression, and that's where it started for me way back in training camp in Kingston. Wasn't filling the net then, so there was a guy named Jeff Circa probably one of the toughest guys in the league. I didn't know he was the toughest guy in the league, but we got into a scuffle, and him and I dropped the gloves, and we got into a really, really lengthy fight. And Mark LaForge came up to me afterwards. Mark was one of the toughest guys in the league. Mark says, "You know who that was?" And I had like no idea, right? And he says, "Congratulations, kid." He says, "I like you," right? So that's how it all happened. So a little, naive at the time, right? So
That helps sometimes.
No,
Yeah.
You talk about about the determination you had, like
Yeah.
you wanted to make the OHL.
Yeah.
But you also talked about the flexibility of being able to go from you thinking, well, you being a sniper and then having to
Yeah.
adjust to be an enforcer.
Yeah.
Is this something that you instill or something that you tell to your kids when you're coaching them?
Well, my plan wasn't to become an enforcer, and I definitely wasn't one of the tough guys in the league. But I just did what I did to have to survive. And I just encourage players today. Like for me too, I knew if I came home, being 3 hours from Kingston, what's the chances of getting called up if there was an injury or suspension? So I kind of quickly had to analyze all that. And being 45 minutes down the road in Smith Falls, I thought, this is an opportunity for me. I'm going to stick around as long as I can, and I'll do whatever it takes to stay here. So I ended up making 4 years out of it. So
Remember that league well. Trips to Pembroke, I'm sure, are always
Yeah.
fun from Smith Falls. Before we get to the Welland Junior Canadians for this season, one last question about your playing days, Chris, and that's the East Coast Hockey League. You played for very early formative years of the ECHL. You played for the Hampton Roads Admirals. One John Brophy was your coach. Can you tell us what that experience was like?
So really interesting experience. I was really good friends, and I stay on today with Larry Landon. He's the president of the Professional Hockey League Players Association. So Larry reached out to me, and Larry used to have summer hockey camps and stuff, so all the pros would train with Larry and Thorold. And Larry says, they got a new team going down in Norfolk, Virginia. And I'm like, where? It's like Virginia Beach. There's hockey there. And he says, John Brophy's the coach, the ex-Toronto Maple Leafs. So John Brophy reached out to me and called. And I went down to Norfolk, Virginia. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And John was an interesting coach. I learned a lot from him, and all the stories are true.
That's my next question. So all the stories that we've heard, and they are many.
If you didn't, I tell this to everybody, if you didn't witness the antics of John, you would never believe it, because some things were so outrageous, you could say that never happened, but I witnessed it. They actually happened.
Now, is there one outrageous John Brophy story you could tell?
Well, John used to get in fights with us in the stands and in the crowds and do all kinds of crazy things like that. So we had, police would knock on the dressing room door looking for Brophy, and so there's a lot of neat things. He had a steel plate in his head. He actually got into an accident way back in the day, I think in the 70s, in St. Catharines. And John had a steel plate in his head, so he was notorious for smashing sticks off his head. And so none of us knew this at the time. And then, a few months or weeks later, somebody said, he's got a steel plate in his head, right? So
it all makes sense now.
Yeah.
All those stories all make sense now.
Yeah, those days. Let's move on then to your coaching career and with the Welland Junior Canadians. How did this all come about?
Oh, boy. I was really fortunate to coach. I had a couple successful years with the Niagara North Midget program, and a couple junior B teams did reach out to me a couple years ago in regards to taking the step to the next level. And so it wasn't just timing. Back a couple years ago, timing wasn't right for me. And then towards the end of last year, Welland reached out and said, would you still be interested in coaching? And I said, absolutely. I took some time off, and timing was right. And they made a coaching change and asked me to take over.
So what can you tell us about this team? What do teams have to fear when they look at Welland?
Oh boy. Well, we're it's baby steps for us.
Right.
Really, it is. We only had 8 returning players, so basically we're carrying right now. We got 22 on the roster, so 14 new kids from all different places, all different ages. For us, it's just really trying to get the kids to gel. Once we get the kids to gel, we got to implement some structures, some systems, and then at the end of the day, we got to start executing. So patience, and right from day one, Leo, the general manager, and I talked, and it's going to be a lot of patience, and so that's where we're kind of at. It's baby steps for sure.
Now, Chris, was it a relatively short recruiting window that you had to work with from the time you were hired till now?
Yes and no. I mean, we had a training camp way back in early May. which was really successful up in Hamilton. There was 40 or 50 kids that came through. We invited quite a few of those kids back to training camp in mid-August. So, but we've been on the phones all summer long. We were on the phones. We were visiting. We were in Hamilton. We were in Toronto. We were watching all kinds of skates and camps. And so we pounded the pavement hard and casted a wide net, just trying to invite anybody who was interested in playing hockey.
Now, when you're going through a rebuild like this, what do you tell the players? Like, what do you do to keep them motivated? And because every once in a while you do see like that rebuild team that you know they break the mold and they do well, or you get the Vegas Knights sort of thing, you know, which I know is an expansion draft. But what do you do to keep your guys kind of motivated?
Well, first of all, like Welland hasn't been a destination of choice for a lot of players. So we really just wanted to create a really positive, fun environment. And I think that's where it all started, knowing that if coming to Welland, we might be a bit of a weaker team to start, and we got a lot of growth ahead of us, but it's a good place to play. We treat the kids really well. The ownership treats the kids well. The coaches treat the kids well. You're going to come to the rink and have fun. And if you want to learn something about hockey, we've got a great staff, and we're going to try and teach you a little about the development and teach you about hockey.
Chris, aside from the players, there's obviously a new general manager, Leo Lestracco, very well known in the area, and the whole new coaching staff. Tell us how that was all put together.
Yeah, so again, through Larry Landon, I met Dalton Lavalier. Larry reached out to me 2 or 3 years ago, and Dalton's career was coming to an end, and he was interested in a career in firefighting, which I did for 27 years. So I met Dalton, and Dalton had a few friends who just finished playing college and pro hockey. And so when I got the position, or even before I got the position, Dalton knew I was interested in still coaching. So I said, if I ever get a job, would you be interested in helping? And Dalton said yes. And I said, you got any young current friends who were interested? So we started assembling a staff way back in the spring. And so Dalton came on place. Ethan came on place. Craig Slack's been with me for over 30 years. Craig and I have coached everywhere and anywhere together. So we got a good mix of old school and new blood. So it worked out really well.
Awesome. So season's on the go now. What are we telling the fans now? What are we telling the people in Welland? We don't want to in a rebuild. There's the patience there, but there's got to be some things that are exciting for you guys as well at this point.
I like to play, I like to play an exciting style of hockey. So I like to be really proactive. I'm not a sit back and a trap style of guy. So hopefully we're a little faster. We're a little more aggressive. We want to skate fast. We want to move the puck fast. So we want to play an entertaining style of hockey, that's for sure. So hopefully when they come to the rink, they're going to see a really competitive game, and they're going to be entertained.
All right, Chris, we're just about out of time on the show. We can't thank you enough for coming in, and we know that this franchise of Welland Junior Canadians is going to be a big success. It's, as you say, baby steps, and starting this season and for years to come, because really, the city of Welland and hometown hockey, by the way, coming November 10th to the Rose City, it's a great place. You've played there in the past. It's a great hockey town.
Yeah, it is a great hockey town, and over the course of the several months, I've been learning a lot about how passionate the people are in Welland about hockey. And they want to be a success, so we're committed to the rebuild and committed to making this team as competitive as we can be.
They're in great hands. Chris Lukie, head coach of the Welland Junior Canadians. Ryan.
And if you ever need any extra help training, I'm well versed in NHL 19 on PlayStation.
Chris, the final word.
Yeah, one last thing. I know Leo Lestracco, our new general manager, he just asked me to put a plug in. We have several kids from out of town playing on the team this year. We're always looking for billet families. And if anyone can take a player or billet a kid, we'd really appreciate it. Reach out to Leo via the website or email. And if you're interested in having a player, join your family. We definitely need billet families.
Having known some billet families over the years, it's not only great for the player, but it's great for the families that take them in too.
Yeah, it is, and especially if you got some younger players or younger hockey players in your family, so it's somebody to look up to, maybe a little mentor or whatever. So it's good. It's good.
All right. Awesome. Now, usually at the end of Sideline to Sideline, we've had Ryan Fleming chopped by wrestlers. We've had him put in a rear naked chokehold by a jiu-jitsu expert, Hurricane Hannah Miller. We've had him kicked in the head. We've had a martial arts expert. Is there anything you could do? Like, do you have a pen nearby you can hit him in the neck with or something? Or,
this is what I deal with all the time.
No, he's safe with me today. It's no problem. He's got nothing to worry about.
I knew I liked you.
No.
And there's no, like I said, worst comes to worst, I'll come and help you guys out on in a practice one
Anytime,
time.
you're more than welcome to.
Right. I will definitely do that. I just don't want to see me on skates. That's probably not good for anyone around.
That'll do it for this edition of Sideline to Sideline. Chris Lukie, the Welland Junior Canadians' brand new head coach. Thanks so much for joining us. And Ryan, it's been a pleasure. The summer was way too long without doing this show with you.
I'm telling you, we won't wait as long next time. Maybe just 7 days.
Yeah, we'll be back next week with another edition of Sideline to Sideline right here on Giant TV Niagara.